Massimo Rivola broke his own team, though he did not do it on purpose. The fingerprints are all over the wreckage at Turn 1 of the Balaton Park circuit, and the MotoGP paddock cannot stop talking about it. On June 7, 2026, at the Hungarian Grand Prix, Aprilia entered the weekend riding a wave of momentum that looked genuinely unstoppable. Marco Bezzecchi sat at the top of the championship standings, while Jorge Martin, the 2024 world champion, was right behind him. Having 4 Aprilia machines on the grid across factory and satellite squads looked like a dream scenario for the manufacturer. Except by the second corner of the very first lap, 2 of those machines were scattered across the tarmac. 3 other riders were picking themselves off the asphalt, and Márquez was already disappearing toward the horizon. They were gone in an instant. Martin started 8th on the grid after a qualifying session that was a disaster for the 2024 world champion. On a track like Balaton Park, where overtaking is almost impossible, and the freshly resurfaced tarmac near Turn 1 had grip levels nobody had fully mapped yet, 8th might as well have been 20th. He knew it, his engineers knew it, and that desperation is precisely what made the first corner so dangerous for everyone around him. He attacked hard and dangerously, pushing past the limit under heavy braking of what his machine could deliver on that particular patch of low-grip tarmac, causing the front to wash out. His motorcycle became a sliding projectile heading straight into Bezzecchi, his own factory teammate who was holding the championship lead. The collision cascaded instantly as Raúl Fernández, the Trackhouse Aprilia rider, got collected in the chaos, while Fermín Aldeguer and Fabio Di Giannantonio also crashed. 5 riders went down in a single chain reaction, with 4 of them forced to retire, all tracing back to one desperate move at one slippery corner. It was a catastrophic outcome. The FIM stewards reviewed the incident and handed Martin a double long-lap penalty to be served at the Czech Grand Prix in Brno, which was the correct decision given the reckless move. The move was reckless, regardless of whatever psychological weight existed behind the scenes. But that penalty is the easy part of this story. The uncomfortable part starts several weeks earlier, deep inside the Aprilia boardrooms. This team was not functioning in quiet harmony heading into Hungary, as tension had been building since Barcelona. At the Catalan Grand Prix, Trackhouse rider Raúl Fernández and factory star Jorge Martin collided during the race. It was not a gentle brush of fairings, but a damaging collision between 2 riders on the same manufacturer's machinery. Internal fury tore through the Aprilia camp, and Rivola decided he had seen more than enough. He called a mandatory manufacturer meeting reportedly held at Mugello, which was attended by all 4 Aprilia riders across both teams, with no exceptions. In that meeting, Rivola laid down what sources described as strict rules of engagement. Every rider had to show complete respect for their Aprilia counterparts, taking no unnecessary risks against teammates, and causing no more collisions that would cost championship points and damage the brand. While the intentions were good, the execution proved terrible. What Rivola actually constructed was a pressure cooker with no release valve. Consider what those rules of engagement meant for Martin heading into Hungary, where he was carrying the weight of his world champion title into every weekend. His teammate Bezzecchi was leading the standings, while he qualified 8th on a track where passing is nearly impossible, all while sitting with a directive from the CEO of his own factory to perform, score points, and avoid crashing into his teammates again. An elite racer trapped between the demand to recover positions and the firm instruction to show mutual respect will often try to brake earlier or push harder to force a gap. He attacks the gap before the midfield bunches up around him, forcing his way to the front before the chaos closes in. And on a newly resurfaced corner that nobody had fully understood in qualifying, he overcooked it completely. This is not a coincidence, but rather a direct case of cause and effect. The psychological load Rivola stacked onto Martin's shoulders created the conditions for a high-stakes, low-grip, high-desperation mistake at Turn 1. The CEO tried to prevent an internal conflict, but the pressure he generated ended up lighting the fuse. The entire situation was self-inflicted. Rivola's public response confirmed where his mind was, showing no diplomatic softening and no comments about reviewing the data internally. He walked straight to Sky Sports Italia and criticized Martin in front of the entire paddock, saying the crash made Aprilia look stupid. He called it a mistake a world champion should not make, and he explicitly ruled out any mechanical or technical failure on Martin's bike, making certain that every journalist, sponsor, and rival team understood where the blame landed. This anger is understandable on one level, since Martin wiped out 5 riders, extended Bezecchi's championship lead to 20 points, and handed Márquez a double victory. The frustration makes human sense, but publicly humiliating your reigning world champion through the media while your entire manufacturer project suffers in the standings is a management decision with long-term consequences that nobody has fully calculated yet. This public exposure threatens the relationship inside the Aprilia garage for the rest of the season. It also impacts Martin's mentality heading into Brno, where he already arrives carrying a penalty, a fractured public image, and the private damage this fallout has caused between him and his own boss. While Aprilia's camp worked through its public meltdown, Marc Márquez was busy making history. June 7, 2026, marked the day he claimed his 100th Grand Prix victory, as he swept both the sprint and the main race without encountering any real resistance from his championship rivals. He succeeded because his championship rivals were scattered across the Turn 1 gravel, allowing him to close his deficit to the top of the standings to 72 points after that single weekend of Aprilia's self-destruction. The math is brutal. Before Hungary, this looked like an Aprilia title fight to lose, with 2 legitimate championship contenders in the factory team, satellite support from Trackhouse, and the machine performing at the front of the field. After Hungary, Bezecchi's lead has shrunk. Martin travels to Brno carrying both a penalty and a damaged relationship with his team boss, and Márquez suddenly carries all the momentum in the championship. Rivola may not have anticipated what the rules of engagement meeting would actually produce. The intention behind that Mugello sit-down was to protect the brand and the championship campaign, but the result was the most damaging non-mechanical incident Aprilia has suffered all season, delivered by the very rider Rivola was trying to control. Management cannot manufacture urgency without understanding what that pressure will do when it collides with a slippery track surface at high speeds. Racing runs on confidence and the quiet, unspoken trust between a rider and the structure around him. When a team boss publicly tells the world that his own world champion made a stupid mistake, he does more than criticize a decision, as he chips away at something that takes months to rebuild. Martin needed Rivola to handle this behind closed doors, but he got called out on Italian television instead. This is the Aprilia internal conflict in its clearest form, extending beyond Martin sliding into Bezecchi or the 5 riders down in the Turn 1 gravel. The deeper conflict runs between the boardroom and the garage, between a CEO who wanted total control over his riders and a world champion who cracked under the accumulated weight of that control on a challenging corner. The double long lap penalty to be served at Brno is the official record of what happened, but the deeper damage carries no official timestamp. It lives in the atmosphere of the Aprilia hospitality unit, in the glances between Martin and the people managing his campaign, and in the questions every member of that team is now quietly asking about whether the strategy at the top of this organization is built for a championship run or just for appearances. Márquez just claimed his 100th win, and he is riding with momentum, clarity, and 0 internal friction. Aprilia entered 2026 with arguably the strongest rider lineup in the paddock, but right now they are burning energy managing public fallout and team psychology instead of chasing the points they need to stay ahead of a Ducati team that is performing exceptionally well. June 7, 2026 is a key date. Not because of the crash itself, but because of what Massimo Rivola said after it. That was the moment this stopped being a racing incident and became a genuine organizational crisis with a championship on the line. Subscribe to track where this goes next, because after Brno, with Martin serving penalties and Bezzecchi needing a near-perfect run to hold Márquez off, the next chapter of this story is going to be even louder than a Turn 1 pileup at Balaton Park.